Okay, welcome. This is episode 73 of the All the Hats We Wear podcast. I'm your host, Scott Snow. I'm a life coach and productivity expert. Today we have a very special focus, and that is on Jane Goodall, the great scientist. And this episode is called Jane Goodall, Living a Life of Purpose. And I really can't think of a better example of someone who was completely dedicated their life to a single worthwhile purpose. And really, you see that she's meant to do this and she's a total inspiration. And you should really check out the documentary about her life called Jane. And this features, I guess, all this footage. I think it was 20 hours of footage that they thought was lost until 10 years ago in the jungle and at Gombe, Africa. So I was surprised to hear that she was 26 years old. She had no specialized training or she had no degree when they first asked her to go. Someone had a grant or something to do some research and observe chimpanzees in their natural habitat in Africa. So she was working as a secretary and she volunteered to go. She said she had always thought of living in Africa and she just always imagined being with animals. As a little girl, she dreamed about Africa all the time. She wanted to be like Dr. Dolittle and talk with the animals. She wanted to move among them like, she belonged, like Tarzan. She said she strangely felt nothing could harm her while she was in the jungle because she was meant to be there. Just a real inspiration, very smart. And to see her interacting with the chimpanzees, and, it wasn't easy. When she first got there, she couldn't even get near them. If she did get a little close, they would just scatter and there's no way she could keep up. But gradually, with her approach, just sitting quietly, still, they started to, check her out and get closer until, they just totally welcomed her into their community. She had nicknames for all of the chimpanzees that she was watching. She had David Graybeard, was one of the older ones. Goliath was, I think, the alpha. Mr. McGregor was kind of like this skinnier one who was kind of comical. And Flo was the mom who had babies, Fifi and Flint. She talked a lot about how observing how Flo was a mother also instructed her on how to be a mother, because as she was doing her expedition, they sent a videographer to her, and they fell in love, and then they got married, and then they had a baby, and then their baby, which they nicknamed Grub, would be out there, and actually the kid was in a cage because it's kind of dangerous. Chimpanzees are known to take a human child as a snack. So they were very careful about that, but, just beautiful videos of her interacting with the chimpanzees and them checking her out. And she learned a lot of things. Like, they didn't realize that chimpanzees knew about object modification, like the beginning of making tools, that they would take a reed and strip off all the leaves and then fish that stick down an ant hole, and fish out ants to eat. So that's really like a tool. And she didn't just see like a monkey or an ape when she was looking at him. She saw a reasoning, thinking being looking back at her. It's pretty neat too, because she talked about death as well. Some of the chimpanzees that she followed died, and she was there for that. And she says it's different in the forest. In nature, death isn't hidden. It's all around all the time. I thought that was really touching. And the most important thing she said for me was, and this gets a ding, my new feature of my podcast, I'll have a ding for the most important point of the podcast. She just talked about what a privilege it was for her to be accepted by animals in their natural habitat, and how lucky she was, and I really think that's special, when you can look at your works that you've done in your career, in your entire life, and say, this was a privilege for me to serve in that way, I think is just awesome. And she also raved about the new movie that's out now, a documentary called My Octopus Teacher. And it's basically like her video, but under the water with octopi, and how smart they are and how amazing. So, and how, it was also parallel in that the animals in the habitat helped the scientists in their life, overcome blocks, and, just they were stuck, and the animals and being there really helped things out. So they relied upon that. Story number 2 is from a book I'm reading. I'm really enjoying it. I recommend it highly. It's called Indistractable: How to Control Your Attention and Choose Your Life by Nir Eyal, Nireyal. And one of the things he talks about in the book, well, the book has a great start. I love when it starts with a great story that hooks you. He's talking about how he was really addicted to his phone and technology and always had his head buried in the phone. And his daughter, who was very young, was playing, they were playing, and she kept wanting her dad's attention, and he was just stuck in the phone. So she was talking about, what superhero would you have if you could choose anything? He wasn't really listening and gave kind of just a simple answer that didn't have any thought or meaning behind it. And she said, I would like to, talk to the animals. And then it dawned on him how he missed a lot of great opportunities in sharing time with his daughter because of his addiction to the phone. So that's what caused him to create this book, Indistractable, because he finally told his daughter, if I were to have a superhero, a gift, then it would be to be indistractable. So there's one section when he talks about psychological factors that explain why happiness is often very fleeting. And there are 4 factors. One is boredom. And there's even been some studies where people could either be alone in a room with their thoughts or give themselves shocks. And most of them preferred to get a shock other than just sit with their thoughts quietly. So boredom. Number 2 is negative bias, where I talked about this in the last episode of the podcast too, where our brains are naturally wired to focus on the negative over the positive. I think it's 4 or 5 times more. And rumination is the next one, where we keep thinking about that negative. And the last one is hedonic adaptation. And this is where we return to a baseline satisfaction level pretty quickly after whatever peak state or happiness. And they believe this is what helps with evolution. Because if we were all super happy all the time, we wouldn't get up and do anything. Story number 3 is about daydreaming. I always find this to be fascinating. And this article said that one of the best things you can do in your free time is daydreaming. And in one study from Harvard said that adults spend as much as 47% of their waking lives daydreaming. Wow. And they used to believe that daydreaming was a failure of cognitive control. But Jerome Singer, who was a former professor at Pennsylvania State, and he became the father of daydreaming research. He hypothesized that daydreaming had a very positive effect, that playful, creative reveries, positive constructive daydreaming was very beneficial. And there's a growing body of research that we can use purposeful, playful daydreaming to increase well-being. Story number 4 is a term that's come up in the news lately, NFT, non-fungible tokens. And this I don't get. It's sort of like the cryptocurrency, but this is even a little odder to me. This is when you could have like a digital copy of like LeBron James doing a very fancy dunk. I think the example was his dedication dunk for Kobe Bryant's memory. And one person can own this video, totally own it, but it's just digital for a lot of money. And so they're taking a lot of these, artwork and sports clips and every kind of other digital piece and selling them. So you have the authentic copy, the one copy of that work. This kind of reminds me of creating snippets for your journal. Of course, I recommend journaling every day. And the first step you need to do is to become more aware of your thoughts and experiences throughout the day. Jot them down in a little daily notebook, something, and so that at night you can explore them. Very important. So those I think of are my non-fungible tokens. And actually they can be fungible. Story number 5 is about journaling. Again, I would love to getting this article by an author named Laura Zielen. And she's also a life coach. And she has this whole system called Author Your Life. So she recommends you think about yourself as a character in a story, and you write about it in your journal. This is a story of your own making, and you write it in the third person, 10 minutes a day. So Mary, went to the beach and was eating healthy and all kinds of positive things, writing in the third person. And we want to welcome stillness and reflection in journaling. That's one of the benefits. That our culture tells us to never stop. And she recommends making yourself the hero in your own story as your journal. She also gives a helpful acronym, HAPPY, but it's HAPPE. H is for handwriting, because they've done research also that if you're writing, you make a lot more neural connections to your brain than if you're typing. A stands for as if. So you should write as if it's happening, not I hope it happens, but it is happening. P, third person. Mary runs 3 days a week. Second P is positive. Don't eat the cake. You say, don't say, don't eat cake. Say, Dave fuels himself with healthy foods. And emotions for E. After writing your journal, close your workbook and experience those emotions that came up during your writing session. And she says, and most people say, well, I don't have 10 minutes a day to do this. She says, if you don't have 10 minutes a day to dedicate to this, then you need to rethink your life. Do I really want a life that you can't even have 10 minutes to yourself? And I know that the research says that writing by hand helps make those neural connections. But I found that with all that I want to do, I can't keep up with writing by hand a journal every day. So I am a big proponent with the audio journal. And I even have my recorder right here, doing kind of a backup of this podcast. And this is an Olympus LS10 digital recorder. And, you can record like 50 hours of audio on there, save them as MP3s. So each night I just have my jotted list, like I said, the creative snippets for each day. And then I just blab. Today's April 15th. And, I did this, and you just gab about all those bullet points and anything else that comes up. And then you have that record. Now I'm adding a new part to it where I start a Word document where I just put the date and then I type those little bullet points. So if I wanted to cross-reference or look those up, when did I go to Mario's restaurant? I could just type in Mario's and you could see right there. Here's the dates that I ate at Mario's. So it's a great record-keeping device too. You make a meeting with someone, because it's in your journal. It is important to try to get in a routine where you do it on the day, because sometimes you'll get backed up. Well, I don't mean backed up, but behind with your journal writing, and then you'll do a whole bunch, in a batch. It's really better to do it every day. And also it's a nice habit to be able to scurry off on your own for a couple minutes. Go in the car if you have to, go in the basement, go for a walk and do your, it could be 3 minutes, it could be 5 minutes. That's it. And then what I do is save all those MP3s in a folder on, my desktop and just by the month and just dump them all in there. Story number 6 This is a quote I heard from an old Tony Robbins tape, "Burn the boats." And I forget the exact story, but basically the captain said, "We're going to that island and we're going to stay there. So when we get there, they burned the boat so that there was nothing else they could do but make it." So, and I find I do this myself. For example, a couple of days ago, I wanted to switch from, I have kind of a big system that I do with, I read 3 newspapers a day. Then I make clips of the articles that are helpful in some way related to what I do. And then I put them in 3-ring binders in plastic sheets. I've got an example here. So I have all the articles like this. So what I wanted to do, because I'm got a lot of binders now, I wanted to switch it so I was going to be digital only. So I had my phone and I got this app, Genius Scan, and then I was scanning those clips onto my phone, and then it was showing up. I fixed it so it could show up on my laptop as a PDF file. Then I figured, well, I can just look them up, and if I need to refer to it, then I'll just do that on the laptop. So for about 2 hours, I was completely sold that there was going to be no more physical binders for me with this. I'm just going to go digital. And then with all this work I did, I got it working. But then in the end, I found, you know what? I like the other way better. So I switched to the original way. And but I felt very good about making that decision because I found that I really found the end of that new avenue. I saw it through with total focus and found it wasn't working for me. So then having that total commitment is really helpful. It really saves a lot of time. This is also why I have probably 30 business cards. Well, I can't find it now, but of all my different company names throughout the years, because I'll have a name, get the business card, and then a month later, I find a better name or a different angle. Also with teams and teamwork, if you can convince people to be this far on board, you really can find out if your strategy works because you're all doing it at the same time with 100% intent. So getting back to Jane Goodall, I do recommend seeing that video. She's so cool, so pretty, so inspirational. Love Jane Goodall. There's also another neat video on YouTube where they rescue a chimpanzee and bring it back into the jungle when it's all brought back to health. And then they let it go in a beautiful jungle, and the chimpanzee takes a couple steps and then walks back and goes up and gives Jane a huge hug. So it was really nice. So if you want to find out more information on what I do, productivity coaching and seminars on time management, work-life balance, check out the website, allthehatswewear.com. Also, I have a free 1-hour, 5-module course called The 5 Secrets Effective Entrepreneurs Know About Time Management. And I'm really proud of that. It's really awesome. In that you'll learn about goal setting, a totally different way of setting goals and achieving them. Having a system for managing all these busy working parts in your life. And the most important part of it all is identifying your roles. So all these hats we wear. Think of a master chef has to have all their ingredients spelled out. And the same thing with what you'll do with identifying all these hats you wear. And I don't know if you know this, but there are 4 different categories of roles. Very important to have everything represented. Also, another tip is you want to have roles that are future roles. So things you're not even doing. I have plenty of those. A visionary role. We have investing roles and philanthropy roles. So don't be afraid to think big with these roles. I can help you. Go to the website and you can set up a free consult and we can start focusing on your big plans because you're meant to do great things. And this system can help you be more joyful, productive, and fulfilled. Until next time, bye-bye.